This happened a few days ago when I traveled to Eldridge Hollow. I was 34, hoping to capture its haunting beauty for an upcoming project. I wasn't a seasoned traveler or anything, but I thought the village would offer inspiration and maybe even some interesting stories. The village was quiet. The air felt thick and heavy with a mist that settled in the valley. I could see the Victorian architecture peeking through the trees, with overgrown gardens surrounding every old house. It was beautiful but eerie. I couldn't shake that feeling. Even days later. On my second day, I found an old, abandoned house. I felt drawn to it. My camera was ready, and as I got closer, I nearly tripped over a child's toy lying in the yard. I stopped, confused. I don't remember seeing any kids around. The feeling crept back in too, that feeling like someone was watching me. I shook it off, telling myself it was just the isolation playing tricks on my mind. The days started to blend together. I wandered around, taking photos, but something felt off. Lights flickered in the empty windows of the houses. I swore I saw shadows darting out of sight when I turned my head. My heart raced. I glanced over my shoulder more often than I should. It felt like I was being followed. One afternoon, I decided to grab lunch at the little cafe in the center of town. A group of villagers sat at a table. Their hushed conversation stopped when I walked in. They turned to look at me, their eyes wide. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but the fear in their faces was clear. They wanted me to leave. I couldn't shake the dread washing over me. What could be so dangerous about this place? I left the cafe quickly. The air felt colder. I wandered through the empty streets, adrenaline surging as I felt those strange eyes watching me again. Every rustle of leaves made me jump. I thought about leaving, wondering if it was worth the risk. But the pull of the village kept dragging me back. I turned to head toward my car and stopped. There, standing at the edge of the woods, was a figure I couldn't quite make out. They looked small, but I couldn't tell if it was a child. I opened my mouth to call out, but I hesitated. Then I saw them step back into the trees. My heart raced. That cold grip tightened around me, stronger than before. I had to decide, stay and uncover the truth, or leave it all behind. Then I heard a whisper in the wind that chilled my bones. "Why are you here?" I spun around, but nobody was there. I took a step back, unsure if I was losing my mind. I felt overwhelmed. I thought about the child's toy, the villagers' fear, and the shadows lurking in those abandoned houses. I stood there, frozen, knowing I had to get out. Yet the deep mystery of Eldridge Hollow pulled at me like a dark thread. Would I ever understand what happened in that village? I didn't know. But I had to leave before whatever was there found me. I barely slept that night. The whisper echoed in my head, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, it lingered like a dark cloud. Morning light barely brightened the corners of my room as I packed my bag. I had convinced myself I would leave Eldridge Hollow, but as I stepped outside, an odd sort of calm embraced me. Maybe I could stay just one more day. The village was shrouded in fog, but I felt compelled to document the old house I discovered. Something about it wouldn't let me go. I walked the familiar path to the outskirts, each step accompanied by the sounds of my breath cutting through the silence. When I reached the house, it stood like a sentinel. I felt the unease return, like the air thickened again. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before raising my camera. I snapped a few shots of the peeling paint and broken windows, but just as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. In the overgrown garden, I noticed a small wooden swing hanging limply from the branches of an old tree. The swing creaked slightly, despite the stillness around me. It sent a chill down my spine. There was something so wrong about it. I stepped closer, feeling compelled to investigate. That's when I saw it. A faded, torn piece of paper sticking out from the ground near the swing. I knelt down to examine it. The writing was mostly illegible, but one phrase stood out: "They never came back." My pulse quickened. Who? What had happened to them? I pushed aside the dirt, uncovering the rest of the paper. It looked like a child's drawing. There were stick figures holding hands, and above them were swirling lines that looked like a storm. Beneath the drawing were more words: "We waited for the light." Confusion filled me. I felt heavy and light all at once. I had to get answers. Turning back towards the village, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A figure stood just outside the tree line, watching. I squinted, trying to make out any details, but they seemed to blend into the shadows. Then, suddenly, they stepped back, vanishing just as quickly as I had spotted them. My heart raced again. Was it the same figure from before? Maybe I wasn't imagining things after all. I turned quickly to leave the yard, hurrying back into the street where other villagers were already shooting glances my way. Their eyes spoke volumes: warning, pity, and unease. I tried to shake off the feeling of being hunted and headed toward that cafe again, my stomach twisting with nerves. As I walked, the fog began to lift. It clung to the buildings around me, making them look more like silhouettes than homes. I approached the cafe, but before I could open the door, I heard a low murmur. It seemed to come from behind the house next door. My instincts screamed at me to stop, but curiosity yanked at my feet. I walked closer, trying to listen more intently. That's when I realized it wasn't just one voice. There were multiple voices, speaking softly, almost like a chant. I pressed my ear against the cold wall. "They will return," they whispered. "And the others will awaken." Every hair on my body stood on end. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The mystery of Eldridge Hollow had deepened, and I was in too deep now to turn back. What was waiting for me in that fog? I had to figure it out, but now I knew something was coming. The cafe door swung open, and the familiar warmth enveloped me. The smell of coffee and baked goods made my stomach growl, but I couldn't shake the eerie feeling from outside. I scanned the room for familiar faces but found every table occupied by quiet, watchful eyes. They seemed to bore into me, their whispers fading as I approached the counter. "Just a coffee, please," I said, trying to sound casual. My hand shook slightly as I fumbled with my wallet. The barista, a woman with weary eyes, nodded and quickly prepared my drink. "Are you okay?" she asked, glancing toward the door as if something lurked just outside. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a little tired, I guess." My mind raced back to the chanting voices, to the drawings and the swing. I needed to talk to someone. "Have you seen a lot of visitors around here?" I asked, hoping for answers. She shook her head, handing me the coffee. "Not many. Most who come don't stay long." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It's not safe." A sense of dread settled over me. "Why? What happened to them?" Her gaze shifted to the window, a shroud of worry in her eyes. "People come, and then they just leave. Or disappear." My heart sank. I had heard the whispers of the villagers now. Everything felt connected, but it was still just a string of shadows. "What do you mean? Who disappears?" She hesitated, looking around as if someone were listening. "Rumors. Children gone missing. A couple of adults too. No one talks about it. Not anymore." I found something I started, my voice barely a whisper. But before I could explain, the door swung open again, and a gust of wind rushed in. The cafe fell silent. A man stepped inside, his clothes mismatched, as if he had dressed in the dark. He had wild, unkempt hair and eyes that seemed to glitter with a haunting knowledge. I staggered back a step, suddenly too aware of everything around me. "Do you see it?" he asked, his voice booming in the quiet. Everyone stared at him. "The shadows? The watches?" I exchanged glances with the barista. "What are you talking about?" But he continued, undeterred. "They'll awaken soon. The ones who waited in the light." Panic coursed through me. This was the same phrasing from the drawing. The man stepped further inside, his gaze landing on me. "You're different. They choose those who question." "Question what?" I demanded, though fear clawed at my insides. He leaned closer, eyes wide and unblinking. "The dark knows you. It calls for you." Then, just as quickly as he entered, he turned and rushed out into the fog, leaving the door swinging wildly behind him. The cafe erupted into murmurs. I felt the weight of their stares, a dozen questions swimming around. I couldn't stay. I had to find answers. Looking at the barista, I asked, "Where do people go when they leave?" She met my eyes, fear etched on her face. "You have to listen to them. Don't try to find out. Just leave like the others." But I couldn't. I needed to understand why I felt so drawn to Eldridge Hollow. So, with coffee in hand and the weight of their warnings echoing in my head, I stepped back outside. The fog swirled like a living thing, beckoning me deeper. I had to know what waited within it. Just then, from the edge of the fog, I caught sight of the same figure again, watching and waiting. I pushed through the thickening mist, my heart racing. The figure stood a few paces away, shrouded in fog, but I could make out the contours of their face. It was the man from the cafe, and he seemed just as wild as before, but this time, he looked me straight in the eyes. "Come closer," he urged, his voice barely above a whisper yet intense. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I stepped forward. My sense of dread twisted into a desperate curiosity. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, yet he gestured for me to follow him, glancing over his shoulder as if worried we were being watched. "You need to see. Before it wakes." "Wakes?" The word struck me like a thunderclap. "What wakes?" He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, a sound cut through the silence. It was a low, haunting chant, the voices overlapping and blending into a sinister melody. My skin prickled. The barista's warning echoed in my mind. "We have to hurry," he said, urgency coursing through his tone. "They can feel you asking questions." I followed him, keeping close as we moved deeper into the mist. I felt the fog pressing in around us, suffocating, yet exhilarating. The chill wrapped around my body, sending shivers through me. "Why me?" I asked, struggling to keep up. I glanced back at the cafe, its warm lights now dimmed behind the encroaching fog. "What do you mean by they?" "The ones who watch," he replied, his voice trembling. "The shadows that listen. They're hungry for curiosity. They thrive on it." I swallowed hard. The shadows, the ones in the drawing. The idea of being watched felt all too real. "What do they want with me?" "They want to keep you in their fold. They don't want you to leave." He stopped suddenly, and the mist parted for a moment, revealing a clearing encircled by ancient trees. In the middle stood a small, decrepit swing set, rusted and worn. "What is this place?" I breathed, dread pooling in my stomach. "The keepers of the missing," he murmured. "This is where they came to play." I stepped closer to the swing set, my heart pounding. It felt eerily familiar, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. "The children they played here?" "Yes," he nodded, his eyes bleak. "And the ones who listened to their calls." The chant grew louder, enveloping us like a shroud. I turned my head, searching the tree line. Shadows flickered just beyond my vision. Panic gripped me. "We need to go." But before I could move, the man grabbed my wrist. "You need to make a choice." "What choice?" He pointed at the swing with a trembling hand. "Either you confront them or you leave. But if you stay too long, you might not be able to go back." Just then, the fog thickened, swirling violently as if it had come alive. I felt a presence behind me, heavy and dark. I turned, dread pooling in my veins. Someone or something was approaching. I don't want to be here," I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the growing chaos around me. As the ground trembled beneath my feet, I realized I had a decision to make. That's when I saw it, a fleeting shadow darting towards me from the trees, its eyes glowing an unnatural hue. I could feel it calling. I could feel it wanting me. And for the first time, fear gripped my heart like a vice. I stood frozen, the weight of the shadow's gaze anchoring me in place. Panic rose in my throat as I struggled to comprehend what I was facing. The man beside me stiffened, his fingers clenching tighter around my wrist. "Make your choice," he urged again, his voice almost a shout over the chant growing louder around us. I wanted to run, to escape the overwhelming sense of dread. But part of me felt strangely drawn to the darkness, as if it was a piece of a puzzle I couldn't ignore. Sweat trickled down my spine. What would happen if I chose to confront whatever waited in the fog? With a sudden jolt, the shadow lunged toward me, revealing itself. It wasn't as intangible as I'd feared. Instead, it morphed into a form vague and indistinct, but undeniably present. I could see a small figure, almost childlike, its eyes glowing like lanterns in the fog. The man beside me gasped. "That's one of them," he said, voice trembling. "It wants you to play." "Play?" My throat was dry. "What do you mean? I'm no child." "They were lost long ago," he urged. "They want company. They want to keep you." The swing set creaked eerily in the stiffening air. It seemed to beckon, inviting me closer. The childlike figure wavered, caught between the trees and the swings, its gaze fixed on me, an expression of longing etched across its face. The chanting rose to a fever pitch, echoing through the clearing. When I glanced at the man, I saw panic in his eyes. "We have to go now. They don't like it when we resist." I took a step back, torn between fear and an inexplicable pull toward the figure. "But what if they just want to talk?" He shook his head vigorously. "No. They want to keep you here. To feed on your fear and desire." Before I could respond, the shadow darted forward. A rush of wind spun around us, and the mist seemed alive, writhing and coiling as it tightened its grip. I felt the claustrophobic fear spread through my chest. "Run!" he shouted, and the urgency in his voice spurred me into action. I turned and sprinted, chest pounding, and legs aching. I could hear the swing set creaking behind me, the chant echoing as if the very ground was calling for my return. Suddenly, a childless laughter rang out, sweet yet disconcerting. I stumbled but kept moving, glancing back to see the shadow still watching, its eyes alight with a hunger that chilled me to the bone. The man was at my side, urging me forward. "We can't let them catch us," he panted, his breath heavy with fear. "They'll pull you under, and once you're gone, you won't come back." I wasn't just running from shadows now, I was running from something far more sinister. "What do I do?" I gasped, desperation creeping into my voice. "Find a way to break their hold," he shouted. "You have to confront what they want. Only then can you escape." My pulse raced as I pushed through the mist, determination battling my fear. I didn't have a plan, but I had to do something. My eyes darted around, searching for a hint of familiar ground, a way out. That's when I noticed a flicker of movement behind the trees, something brighter and more inviting. It was a light, breaking through the haze like a beacon. But were the shadows behind me in pursuit? The faint laughter echoed again, and I felt their presence close, too close. Fighting the rising tide of panic, I made my choice. I would chase the light. I sprinted toward it, each step pounding with urgency. And just as I reached for the glow, everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. No wind, no laughter, just an eerie stillness that pressed against my ears. I blinked, trying to gather my thoughts, but the shadows seemed to close in tighter, wrapping around me like a heavy fog. Then, little by little, shapes began to emerge in the obscurity. I was on the ground, my hands pressed against cold earth. I pushed myself upright, heart racing, and looked around. I was in a clearing, but it was different from where I had just been. The trees loomed taller, twisting unnaturally, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. "Where am I?" I whispered, panic squeezing my chest. "Still here," a voice chimed sweetly, sending chills down my spine. I turned slowly, eyes darting to find the source of the voice. There it was, the childlike figure from before, standing a few feet away. Its glowing eyes flickered as it smiled, a blend of innocence and something darker simmering beneath the surface. "Join us," it beckoned, and I felt an involuntary shiver run through me. "No!" I shouted, my voice breaking. "I want to go back." The figure tilted its head, the smile fading to a pout. "But you can play with us," it coaxed. Its form shimmered, becoming more defined, the outline of a child draped in tattered clothes. I could see dirt smudged on its cheeks and disheveled hair that swayed slightly as if in a breeze only it could feel. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the man's voice calling for me. "You have to wake up," he cried, desperation evident. "You have to fight them." A heavy cold weight pressed down on my chest. The shadow's eyes glowed brighter, captivating me, luring me deeper into the unfamiliar space. I wanted to move, but my legs felt heavy. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just a little fun," it replied, little hands clapping together with childlike glee. The air kicked up, swirling around me, now tinged with a thicker, damp smell. "We can play forever." I forced my legs to move, taking a few shaky steps back. "This isn't fun. I don't want to play." My voice was firm now, the fear igniting a flicker of strength I didn't realize I had. But the child figure only giggled, its laughter high-pitched and haunting. "You'll see. You'll want to stay." "Stay?" I echoed, glancing back toward the direction the voice had called from. "Will anyone come for me?" Its eyes narrowed slightly, as if sizing me up. "No one will come. They never do." That's when I noticed shadows creeping in from the edges of the clearing, a mass of dark forms moving silently like predators. My heart raced again, pounding in my ears. I couldn't let them take me. I needed to find a way back. Shouting for the man, I scanned the area, frantically searching for an escape. But with every passing moment, the shadows drew closer, and the laughter rang out again, surrounding me. I could see their eyes glistening now, more than one pair, more than just the child. It was a gathering. "Who will you choose?" The child sang, voice now echoing around me. "Will it be us, or will you let him save you?" I stood at the edge of a choice, trapped between a hungry darkness and the voice of a savior in the distance. Would I have the strength to escape the shadows? Or would I become just another plaything in their eternal game? The shadows began to thicken, more bodies merging into the darkness. They moved with a slow, deliberate grace, dark shapes that twisted and turned, pulling closer. I fought the urge to scream, grounding myself in the sound of the man's distant voice. "Fight them!" He shouted again, but his tone shook. Fear was creeping into his voice, the very thing I had to battle against. "No!" I yelled back, determination sharpening my words. I focused on the child figure. "If you want me to play, you need to tell me the rules." The creature's eyes sparkled with delight, fangs briefly flashing beneath its grin. "No rules. Just fun." Its hands danced around, as if it could hardly contain its excitement. "Fun isn't running away from someone. Fun is," I hesitated. I had to come up with something. "Fun is what you do with friends." The words sounded weak, even to my ears, but I hoped to buy myself some time. "Friends?" It tilted its head, curious. "We can be friends." Just then the shadows surged, calling to me like an ominous chant. I stumbled backwards, looking for an escape amid the twisted trees. The laughter echoed, growing wild as I noticed more glowing eyes peering from the darkness. A chilling realization hit me, these weren't just shadows. They were others like the child, trapped and twisted into these dark forms. "No, I want to be like you," I shouted, gripping my fists tightly. I wouldn't allow fear to claim me. "I have to go back." And then I heard it, the man's voice, clearer now. "You have to fight. Step into the light." Light? I turned my head, searching the darkness for any sign of illumination. There! A flicker, just beyond the edge of the clearing. Without thinking, I ran, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. The shadows lunged at me, trying to pull me back, but I pushed them away with sheer willpower. The closer I got to the flickering light, the more I felt the shadows resist, slamming against me like a wall. "Come back!" The child wailed, disappointment lacing its voice. But it wasn't enough. I wouldn't let them win. With one final rush, I dove toward the light, feeling a burst of warmth envelop me. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of anger and frustration. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping that whatever was pulling me in was strong enough to break their hold. When I opened my eyes, the light surrounded me completely. I was panting, heart racing, but the shadowy figures were gone. The laughter turned into distant echoes, fading until it was no longer there. I was back in a forest, but this one felt familiar, safe. Then, a hand grabbed my shoulder, and I gasped, spinning around. It was him, the man. Relief flooded through me. I thought I lost you, he said, eyes wide with concern. I don't understand what just happened, I stammered, trembling from the experience. He stepped closer, urgency etched on his face. We need to leave. They can still reach you. That's when I realized the shadows weren't gone. They lingered, just outside the glow of the returning daylight. What do we do? I asked, fear creeping back into my voice. His expression hardened. We don't stop running. And with that, we sprinted into the woods, the fear of the shadows driving us forward. But behind us, I could feel their presence, waiting for the right moment to strike again. We ran through the thick underbrush, branches clawing at me like desperate hands. Each footfall thudded in my ears, drowning out everything but the pounding of my heart and the echoes of the man's hurried breaths beside me. The shadows loomed just beyond the trees, anger simmering in their stillness. Don't look back! He shouted, urging me on. His voice had a raw edge, like he was wrestling with his own panic. I could sense his fear, and it made my stomach twist. What were these shadows? Were they truly going to follow us? I dared a glance over my shoulder, my instincts screaming at me not to. The darkness writhed, glittering eyes peering hungrily from its depths. I quickly turned away, pushing myself to go faster, but my legs felt heavy. The energy from before began to drain away. Where are we going? I gasped, desperation slipping into my voice. Just keep running. There's a clearing up ahead, he called back. His tone was strained, suggesting that he knew more than he was telling. Clarity became crucial. I needed to understand the danger we were in. Suddenly, a low growl reverberated from the shadows. It sent chills down my spine. My blood ran cold. What was that? I asked, panic setting in. He didn't answer, focusing instead on the path ahead. The trees began to thin, and I finally saw it, a wide circle bathed in a warm golden light, illuminated as if the sun had broken through the overcast sky. My heartbeat quickened, sensing this could be our salvation, some kind of sanctuary. We burst into the clearing, and I turned to look back at the forest. The shadows stopped just beyond the edge of light, hissing, their shapes twisted and distorted. They won tea coming here, he said, a touch of confidence in his tone now. I took a deep breath, savoring the softness of the light that wrapped around us. But why? What are they? There he hesitated, scanning the line where the light met dark. They're drawn to fear. You gave them something to hold on to, and now they want it back. I felt a lump form in my throat. What do you mean? They thrive on fear, stealing it, growing stronger with it. When you confronted them, he let his words trail off, clearly grappling with the implications. You did something different. You fought back. Each word resonated with a truth I wasn't ready to fully accept. I thought of the child's shadow, the way it had tried to persuade me to play. So if I stop being afraid, they can't hold on to me? Exactly, he replied, eyes narrowing as he surveyed the shadows. But you have to believe it. It's the only way to break their grip. As I stepped deeper into the light, confidence surged through me. Perhaps I could take this back to the shadows. But then something flickered in the corner of my vision. I turned abruptly. That's when I saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, partially cloaked in shadow. My heart dropped. What is that? The man's expression shifted. We need to go. Now. Before I could react, darkness surged, a chilling wave crashing into my newfound sanctuary. The moment flickered, and the shadows closed in. I could sense it gathering strength, ready to take us both. We were still in danger. Run! He shouted, pulling me back at the last moment. And with a twist of fate, everything around us went dark again. Everything blurred as the darkness enveloped us. It felt like being pulled underwater, the light fading away. I gasped, panic rising again, but the man's grip on my arm didn't waver. "Keep your eyes on me," he yelled, his voice a beacon in the swirling blackness. Instinct overrode fear. I focused on his face, the contours barely visible but reassuring nonetheless. With every ounce of my strength, I pushed myself forward, desperate to escape the suffocating void. As we ran, I heard whispers, soft and frantic, brushing against my ears like a cold wind. "You can't escape," they taunted. "Come back to us." Their voices skittered across my skin, chilling me deeper than the dark itself. "Don't listen to them," he shouted again, pulling me closer. "They want you to doubt yourself." The whispers intensified, turning into a cacophony. I stumbled, feeling like I was caught between two worlds, one filled with light, hope, and safety, and another drowning in shadows and despair. I wanted to scream, to fight back against the darkness that felt more like an unseen force than just a lack of light. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of movement ahead. My heart raced. Was it the clearing? I couldn't tell, but I pushed myself faster, fueled by instinct. Then, just as quickly, the darkness parted. We stumbled back into the golden light, but this time it flickered like a candle on the verge of dying. The shadows hovered, circling the edges of the clearing like vultures. Their glittering eyes locked onto us, an ominous chorus of low growls vibrating through the air. "Stay close," he ordered, scanning the perimeter. I felt a surge of energy. As I held onto that light, I remembered his words. I couldn't give fear power over me. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes for a brief moment, trying to center myself. I thought of the warm light, of resilience. "Hey, shadows!" I shouted, my voice trembling but determined. "I'm not afraid of you." The shadows recoiled, a collective hiss escaping their forms. I opened my eyes and saw something unexpected. Instead of a wall of darkness, I saw faint outlines of faces within them, twisted and contorted. "You don't belong here," I challenged, my voice louder now. The man beside me looked surprised, but pride flickered in his eyes. "That's it. Keep pushing." Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my left arm, pulling me back to reality. I looked down to see a shadowy tendril, slick and cold, wrapped around it, trying to tug me back into the dark. "No!" I shouted, struggling against it. The tendril tightened, icy fingers digging in, but I focused on the warmth of the light surrounding me. "Remember, you have the power," he urged, fighting off another shadow that tried to approach. I closed my eyes once more, willing myself to believe. No more fear. No more shadows. You don't get to have me. With one final push, I felt a surge of heat rush through my fingers. I yanked my arm free, and the tendril recoiled, retreating like a startled animal. The shadows writhed in frustration, trying to regroup, but then I sensed something shifting. A bright glow spread gradually from the center of the clearing, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. "What's happening?" I asked, a mix of awe and confusion rising in me. "They're starting to weaken," he shouted, gripping my shoulder in encouragement. "But we need to hold on." A realization washed over me. If the light could grow stronger, maybe it could chase the fear away completely. With that thought, I focused on the sensation of warmth, willing it to grow brighter, but before I could gather my thoughts, a shadow lunged from behind, wrapping around the man, dragging him back toward the dark. "Help!" he strained, his eyes wide with panic. "No!" My chest tightened. I surged forward instinctively, ready to fight against the shadow, but the moment I reached for him, everything around us dimmed and began to swirl again. Panic flooded me as I realized I had only moments to act. Would I let him be taken, too? I couldn't bear the thought. "Stay with me!" I screamed, stretching my hand toward him as the shadows began to encase him entirely. Then I saw the truth in his eyes. He still believed in the light, and suddenly I understood maybe it wasn't just about fighting fear. Maybe it was about sharing strength. Together! I yelled, reaching out, my heart racing as I fought to grasp his hand, feeling the chilling grip of the shadows at my heels. But what if it was already too late? The shadows closed in, darkness beckoning like an abyss. I had only a split second to decide. I threw all my weight forward, reaching for his hand, and grasped it tightly. Together! I shouted again, and in that moment, something shifted. The air sparked with energy, pooling around our joined hands as we drew on each other as strength. The shadows recoiled momentarily, unsure of how to navigate this sudden change. I could feel the warmth radiating from us, mingling with the light that flickered like a candle's flame. The whispers around us quieted to an anxious murmur, as if the darkness itself hesitated. "Don't let go," he urged, his grip tightening, and I could see a determination in his eyes that fueled my own. Together, we stood against the encroaching shadows. "Focus on the light." As we stood there, I visualized the warmth spreading outward, filling the clearing with brilliance. It worked. The glow surged forward, illuminating the twisted faces of the shadows lurking near, and I could see them briefly flinch. "We can do this!" I cried, lifting my chin. "We are stronger than fear." The shadows wailed and shrieked, their forms flickering as they writhed in discomfort, losing their grip on our surroundings. I felt a wave of power surge through me, and I forced it outwards, spilling warmth into the very core of darkness that threatened to swallow us whole. The tendrils recoiling from us shifted back into the depths of the woods, spawning growls of outrage that rang out bitterly. "Keep going," he said, enthusiasm intertwining with wild disbelief. "Don't let them take us." A shared conviction fueled our resolve as we pushed against the encroaching shades. The light ignited further, now blazing as I thought of everything I cherished: freedom, safety, the world beyond the fog. Shadows twisted and shook, their forms beginning to dissolve in the brilliance, but then I noticed something lurking at the edge. The child figure from the clearing appeared briefly, its glowing eyes fixed on me, a mixture of longing and desperation darkening its gaze. "You could stay," it whispered, pleading like a child yearning for attention, its voice almost a melody. "No. I want to stay here," I shouted, forcing my gaze away. The shadows surged, the sounds of their collective cries fading, replaced by a symphony of my own heartbeat and the steady rhythm of freedom. I could feel the barrier between us and the darkness beginning to solidify. "One more push," I thought. But I also sensed something deep within me, a fear that I could not ignore. What if they come back? What if they try again? "They will," the man shouted into the swirling fog. "But if you know your strength, if you remember this moment, you'll always have the light within you. You're never really alone." His words anchored my determination. We could face whatever would come, so long as we held on to this truth. Phrases from the villagers echoed in my mind and, with each repetition, fueled my drive, a promise to never let fear dictate who I was or where I belonged. "On three," he said, squeezing my hand. 1, 2, 3. With our voices rising, we channeled all our shared strength, shattering through the last vestiges of the dark. The light erupted outward, blinding and cleansing as it surged forth in relentless brilliance. The shadows screamed, their form dissipating like smoke in the wind. And then suddenly, silence, panting heavily, we stood alone in a clearing washed in bright light that felt almost surreal. A warm breeze rustled the leaves, and I could hear the distant sound of birds. I looked around, disbelief settled amongst a deep-seated relief. "Did we do it?" The man nodded slowly, a smile breaking through the remnants of fear. "For now. But the shadows, they don't just disappear. They linger." I felt a chill seep into my spine, and I turned back to the edge of the woods. The outline of dark figures lurked there, watching, waiting, perhaps plotting. My heart sank, and questions rose like smoke. What did it all really mean? Did I truly escape, or were we just in another cycle of their twisted game? I still didn't know. With a lingering sense of unease, we trekked back. Through the woods, light spilling from above, illuminating our path. I could feel the echoes of what had happened pressing against my mind, questions swimming just beneath the surface. As I glanced back once more at the shadows receding into the trees, I couldn't shake the uneasiness. "Is it really over?" I asked quietly as we emerged from the forest's edge. "For now," he said, but his expression was uncertain. The shadows had retreated, but their weight was still palpable. "But you'll never truly forget what they represent." And he was right. I moved forward, but I knew I would carry the echoes of Eldridge Hollow with me, a hidden weight in my heart. I moved away from that place, not entirely sure what I had escaped, but eternally marked by it by the darkness and the light, intertwined in a dance of choices that I would always carry, whether I liked it or not. With each step, questions lingered. How did I confront the darkness again? And what awaited me in the shadows? I'd have to find out someday.